Hey LS Church, this is our podcast where we sit down with Sunday speaker and recap their message with questions and conversation. This week's pod is on May 11th's message, Happiness for Beginners, Part 3, Let Go, with Pastor Steph Pitkin. Let's check it out. What's up LS Church? My name's Caden. I'm here with Pastor Steph, and we are talking about her message on May 11th, Mother's Day, Happiness for Beginners. This is Part 3 of 3. Let go, right?
Maybe part 3 or 4.
Oh, I guess I tried to end the series.
Trying to end this too soon. The Lord's not finished yet.
Okay, I swear you were doing 3 parts. Maybe I was mistaken.
I think I started out doing 3, but they're just,
Well, yeah, that's
kinda
good.
adding,
so let's talk about Mother's Day. So you're a mom of 5.
Mom of 5.
Now, just for reference, we normally record this on a Wednesday. We talked about that last podcast. We are actually recording this on a Saturday, so it comes out in just a couple hours. So I know this, not only is this sermon, but Mother's Day as a whole feels like a long time for you.
It feels like months ago.
Yeah, so how was it if you can remember?
It was good. Let me remember. It was actually a great day. My kids were really sweet, and I woke up that morning and they had all left like little treasures around the house with
And what time do you wake up on Sundays?
Really early, like 3 o'clock in the morning. And so I was up early, I was going to the kitchen, and then I found this little box. I'm like, what is this? And so one of them had made me like an origami box with notes, and one got me flowers, one got me a cake. It was just a great morning. They were really, really sweet. And then it's always cool to celebrate the moms here. I've tried the past few years to kind of not know what we were doing because I like the surprise as well.
Right.
And so getting to see all the cool stuff going on was neat. What was it?
Mom Squad.
Mom Squad.
Shout out
to the Mom Squad. So that was really cool, just celebrating moms. So Mom's Day is great. It's actually almost kind of like a secondary Easter service.
Right.
I think Easter is when moms play the "Will you come to church with me?" It's Easter card.
Right.
Well, they play it again on Mother's Day. And so it's neat to see the moms and families are just kind of all sitting together.
Yeah.
And so it was a cool service.
I love the jokes. First of all, Pastor James had some great moments.
Yeah, it's the tradition now.
Yes, I love the
how
one.
he became the joke guy.
I don't know either. And I think he gets excited for it every year.
I think he is too.
I think he plays like he doesn't.
He plays like I think he likes it.
Yeah. I think also I love just the differences between mom and dads. Moms are like you said, on Mother's Day, they're like, I want everyone around me. And I want them all to come to church with me. And I'm not saying that's for every mom, and what I'm about to say is not for every dad, but the dad's like, I want no one around me, and I want to go fishing.
Golfing,
or whatever
fishing, and whatever the vice,
So we love our moms, and very, very, I'm glad you had a great Mother's Day. I'm glad that your kids treated you great. The reason I ask about when you woke up is because I think it's so, they know you so well to give you gifts around the house that early in the morning.
Yeah. They were funny. And they even, like one of them put it in my car. So when I got in my car, it would already be there.
Yeah.
So they were just really thoughtful. And they wrote really thoughtful notes with lots of words.
I think I told you this when you told me all that earlier this week, but I said they you'd you.
They did.
They did, because that's something you would do for them. But
they did.
That's nice.
They did.
That means all the good qualities that you're giving them, they're passing back on to you.
Yeah,
so
I hope so.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you had a great Mother's Day. I had a great Mother's Day.
Yeah.
You didn't ask me, but I'll just go ahead and answer. I had a equally good Mother's Day. Actually, I had a hard Mother's Day because we went to eat, and you know how the restaurants are.
Yeah, crowded.
It was bad. So I think we waited like maybe an hour and a half at this restaurant.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm not even gonna say who it is because I'm about to say they didn't even have the chips and salsa out when we got and sat down. So that was torture.
How
honestly.
dare they?
So anyways, but it was great. My mom had a great time, so it was good. So you talked about this Sunday. You said this title was Let Go. Now, I know that it wasn't like I got this message for the moms, right? But I know that you're thinking that when you're preparing. Like, how is this special for them? So for your opinion, how does this message hit differently for moms?
Yeah, I think by nature, I think God has equipped us by design with like extra senses to, it's always the joke of like dad comes in, he's looking all over for his hat, and he's like, honey, have you seen my hat? And she's like, yes, third drawer on the left, it's behind the thing, you left it there 2 weeks ago on a Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
Because you're just like so aware, because I think God's gifted us with this ability to be aware. I think God's given mothers ability to see things, have vision for their life and what that could look like. It's part of the nurturing spirit. You want to nurture and create environments. And so I think moms, the gifts that God has given us make us very aware and always having a plan for something, And but then the enemy, I think, really kind of comes and uses that to actually get us really caught up in all the worries and cares and all the trajectories and all the what's this going to look like, and here's the goal and here's the plan, and so I think we all do it, but I don't want to say all moms, but I would say most moms, I think, because we love our kids so much. It's easy. We're not just carrying the burdens and things of our own life and our own vision, our own plan. Now it's however many people are in our house times that many. So for me, this is a real reality. It's like I'm not just carrying my concerns and worries and my dreams. I've got 5 other dreams, worries, concerns that I'm sometimes playing God in and getting in the way and trying to make it all happen in my timeline because I want it to work out. And it's kind of like, get out the way and kind of let God do his job. And I need to do my job. So I think it was good for the moms. At least it was good for this mom. I don't know about the rest.
No, I mean, I think that's good. I think that definitely plays. I mean, I'm going to spoil it a little bit, but let go and let God. Like you said, sometimes you play God, right? And you're like, oh, wow, I got this and I got that. And I'm working my masterful plan, and you're like, but it only goes as far as you, and it only goes with your knowledge too, right? Everything that you know, you don't know them as well as God knows them, and you're like, nuh-uh, that's my baby, But I think that, so I think it does hit differently for the moms, and it was a halfway unintentional, halfway intentional, good message for them to be able to take away.
For sure.
And if there's a lot of moms in the house, that's a great message for them to hear. So that was good. You talked about when expectations go unmet. Right? Having expectations, for your life, for your family, for your job, for whatever it is, and that going, you spoke Proverbs 13:12, hope deferred makes the heart sick. And you had these three types of people when things don't go to plan, or when people try to take action themselves. Right. And it was the strivers, it was the settlers, and then there was the combo. So do me a favor, help me define and unpack these. Who are the strivers?
I would say that people respond. I think we're born with dreams. We're born with identity that's we're made in his image. So I think there's this image-like character that's in us, and this image-like design and desires that we have. And so what happens? We get into life, and that's just not how it's working out. It's not working out at the Garden of Eden. Things aren't happening. And so what do? That saying, we use it a lot when it comes to, we use it with our team a lot. Unmet expectations breeds contempt. It's a way that we encourage everybody. Make sure you're clear on what you're expecting when you communicate. But I think that happens in our hearts sometimes. I think our heart has expectations for where our lives will be, where our children's lives would be, where God should be moving us. And when those expectations aren't met, I think it sometimes breeds contempt for God, or it breeds contempt with others. Sometimes it breeds contempt within ourselves. And so how we respond to that, and I know people that respond to it and just try harder. These are the people that, and I'm not saying any of this is wrong, I'm just saying without God's involvement, it can become idols in our life. And one could be the striving, right? We just start striving. I'm gonna make it happen. And I've got my 10-year plan, my 5-year plan, I've got my goals, I've got my list, and I wanna do all these things, and I'm not really leaving room for God and his plan and his timeline because I've taken so much control. And there's a part of that that's good. I think sometimes people seem to almost get where they're not actually stepping and moving in their life. But we do have a tendency to kind of over control our lives and make things happen and kind of kick down doors that God hasn't quite opened. So I think that's a way. And then I know other people that kind of do the opposite. When expectations aren't met, they kind of go, well, I just don't care anymore. And that might look like, I don't have a dream. That might look like, I don't whatever. I think you just begin to settle and you kind of just get okay with where you are. And some people do that in a way that's trying to be positive. No, I'm good right where the Lord has me, which is good. I'm not saying that that's not, but if we're not careful, we become where we're not really asking God for things and expecting God to do something. And then sometimes I can see it get kind of toxic and really kind of end in I really don't care anymore. And we settle.
I think that, speaking on that one too, this is funny. This is the most recent Spider-Man movie. Was one of the characters was like, if you expect disappointment, then you will never be disappointed. And that's a bad mindset.
And so I think the settlers sometimes can do that. We just kind of move that, and then I threw the combo people, and that's probably what I am.
You feel like
I'm the combo.
I was going to ask us, say, who are you?
I'm the combo because there's days that I am like, that's it. I'm making this happen. I'm just running this race for God as fast as I can, and then I am just hitting wall after wall. My head hurts from hitting so many walls, and then I'm like, you know what? I just don't care anymore. That's it. I'm not even gonna try. I don't even care.
Yeah.
You know? Or I'll do it in a holy way.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm just gonna let God do. I'm just not gonna do anything. I'm just gonna sit right here, you know, whatever. You know, in this disappointment mode.
Right.
And I will go back and forth. And it's funny because poor James, I think he lives with me. I'm either striving or sitting on the couch at all times. You know, what day is it? I don't know. And so learning to find that proper balance in that.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, you know, speaking to, you know, the combo too, I think maybe that's the product of sometimes when we, you know, get in our idea what our plan is, you know, and what we want to do, and this expectation for ourselves. Sometimes the expectation that we even give for ourselves is so unrealistic, you know, that it starts to be hard. It starts to get hard to even like, take the first step because you're expecting failure too at the same time, right? Because you're not even be able to meet this. And I think that's the unique part of what God's plan is for us, is that not only is it so much better than ours, but it's actually doable, you know, with Him. And but you know, if we try to do it on our own, you know, then we will keep failing, and then the strivers turn into the settlers, you know, and then. You know, it's not saying, you know, one, they're both the wrong way to go about it, you know?
Yeah, and I think there's just like this holy way to live in the unknown with expectation, but also without striving. More of just striding with the Lord and walking step by step. There's a book, I haven't read it yet, and I kind of want to read it because I'm thinking about doing this maybe with our women in the fall, but the title of it captivated me as a woman because it said, now, but not yet. And I'm like, how can I live in the now but not yet? Because there's so many expectations.
That captivates me as a man, I think.
It does captivate you.
Yeah, it really does.
It's a captivating title. So it sat there and I'm like, man, that's an expectation we have to live in. We have to live this expectation that God can open doors, do anything right now at a moment's notice. Just suddenly that could happen at any time. But I have to also live in the it's not quite yet. And how do I keep moving and at a pace that God's called me to, and not go seeking always the reward and seeking the expectation. Can I live right here and do what God's called me to today? Yeah,
I think that the idea of not striving is very hard for people to understand, right?
Yeah.
Because like, I won't even throw the name of one of my favorite basketball players out there, but their hashtag is hashtag strive for greatness.
Yeah.
Right? Why is striving for, you know, even one of my favorite worship songs, there's an Upper Room clip and some of my friends, we know what it says, but it's like, we're not striving to be with Him tonight. Like she like talks before the song. And I think for me for a long time, I'm like, okay, like don't strive to be with Him. Like, what's the difference between striving and is striving and trying, is that the same, you know what I mean? Is that the same thing? Like, are you saying don't try to be with God? You know, so like, what does that really mean?
Yeah, well, I think striving, and it's actually been kind of glamorized, you know, for someone to have hashtag striving for whatever, right? Strive was like this thing of like, I'm going to give it everything. I will kill myself to make this thing happen. And while it's a good idea if we are doing this on our own, that's a great strategy. But God doesn't call us to do this alone. He calls us to do that with Him. And He doesn't live in that formula. The kingdom of God is not striving, killing ourselves, whatever it takes. We're going to make this happen. We'll knock down every door. It's not. God lives in a place of rest. He's very purposeful in His step. And so there's a difference between striving and striding. Striding is walking with large, purposeful steps towards a very clear vision. Striving, I mean, use your imagination. I mean, that's crazy. You know, and you're sweating and you're, like, visualize what that's like to strive, and you're just like, veins are popping out and you're exhausted. Like, that isn't the life that God called us to. And if we're not careful, we'll allow the enemy to convince us that if we're not living life like that, then we're not doing anything for the Lord. When that's not how Jesus walked everywhere He went. Never where do I open my Bible, and it was like Jesus was freaking out. Good things weren't happening in Jericho or Jerusalem. So He was panting, He was running by. He swapped by the woman at the well, gave her a big high five, told her she was healed, and kept going. Like, no, it was like almost like, Jesus, don't you have something to do? He was purposely going moment by moment by the Holy Spirit. And He accomplished so much with His life. He did more in His 33 years than the rest of us have done all combined. So, but He didn't have to strive because He was striding and like walking with the Lord. And so, that was funny. Our mission statement when we first started 7-8 years ago when I was like, let's get a mission statement, and the opening line was, we strive to create an environment where God will move and all these people, whatever. So I can't remember the whole thing when it said, but that was the first line of it. We strive to create this environment. And a few years later, James was actually putting on the website, and he was like, come here, Brunette. And he was like, I don't like this. And he's like, I'm changing this. He was like, that word right there, we're going to strive to create an environment. We're not going to strive to create an environment. We're going to create an environment because that's what God's called us to do, and we're going to do that with him. Let's take that word out.
So now the mission statement is, we create an environment. Yeah, right. Yeah, I think that's a good idea just to unpack, just because of, like you said, like, well, the problem is, I think the culture is about striving, and the American culture, at least, like striving, hustling, doing it, you all on your own way. Like, you gotta, you stay up however many nights, whatever. That's the American dream, baby. And you do that, and it's like, if you mix that in to what God has for you, then where does God fit in that equation? Because it seems like you're doing all the heavy lifting, in that striving idea.
And I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were like, I was like, it's hard sometimes when I'm preaching, because there is an extreme. There's these people that are striving and killing themselves, and then there's these people that really, like, you got to get up and do something. And these people are going like, I'm just going to trust God, and they're not even trying. And these people are striving, and it's almost like, which message do you need? The opposite of the one you want to listen to.
Right.
So I think to the strivers, it needs to go, hold on, slow down. Trust the Lord and walk with him. But to the people that are being lethargic and not really taking any responsibility towards partnering with the Lord, those people, like, get up.
Yeah.
Like, start moving. If you want God to use you, then you got to put your feet to the fire and start walking.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, the message I feel like covers kind of all the way in there.
Yeah. Let's jump to the next part, which is the idea of desiring, right? And I like what you said in there, because you're saying desiring is actually a God-given trait.
Yeah.
Right. And to desire is a God-given trait, and that the problem isn't desiring, kind of like we were just saying a second ago, our strategy to fulfill the desire. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And so how can we approach that differently, and how have we been approaching it?
Yeah. Well, I think by desires, I do think that the enemy tries to convince us, if you have a desire, then you have idols in your life, you don't care. But yeah, it's a God-given thing to desire and dream and want things. But whenever that desire it becomes our number one thing,
right,
I think that's when we get into dangerous territory. But the desire in itself isn't. In fact, it's always so easy for me, because I was blessed with having really great parents, and I think I'm a great parent. Right, my kids are here, right? Hopefully. and I just think about myself as a parent. And when my kids have a desire for something, whatever desire they have, it automatically becomes my desire for them. Now, of course, if there's things that are going to hurt them or put them in danger, or things that aren't good for them, I go, that's not our desire. I cannot. But when my kids have a pure desire that has to do with their nature, there's no greater thing that I want to do than give them that desire. I want them to have desires. I don't want them going, I don't have anything on my Christmas list. I want them giving me a list with 1,000 things on it that they've been dreaming of.
Right.
And I think it's the same for God. He wants his children to desire things. And he wants to be the rewarder of those desires.
Right.
And so I think that's that scripture where you used Sunday. It was, delight yourself in the Lord, and he'll give you desires of your heart, because that's the exchange. When, just like my kids, when they delight in me as a parent and they honor me and they're obedient, there's no greater reward for me than to reward them in turn. But if my kid starts acting like, I'm self-made and I do this on my own, well, then I'm like, well, go on and get out the house then.
Right, yeah. Right.
Go bake it on your own. Good luck at the grocery store, because it's really expensive.
Yeah.
So I think that he's a good father, and as good as I feel like I could be as a parent, as much as I love my kids, he loves us that much more. And so he wants to meet our desires, but he wants to be the one that does that for us. Okay, so
because you said at one point in the message, you said that like our desires fulfilled actually glorifies God. How is that?
It does. It actually glorifies God. I think us having desires and us trusting the Lord and God meeting those desires supernaturally opening doors for us. I mean, that's such a great witness to us. And in that passage where Jesus was talking to the disciples and he was kind of going through the vine, John 15, he says this, he says, I'm the vine and you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him will bear much fruit. What's the fruit? The fruit is the things in our life that we see. We talk about fruits of the Spirit, but there's also the fruit of our life, right? There's the abundance in our life and things happening. He says, if you abide in me, there will be much fruit. Without me, you can do nothing. And he says this, he says, if you abide in me and my words abide in you, you will ask what you desire. So it's here, this was relating to the fruit, right? The fruit of what? The fruit of desire.
Yeah.
So when you ask what you desire, it shall be done for you. And then it says, by this my Father is glorified. He says, so when you abide in me and you begin asking me for things, there is going to be answered prayers, answered desires, which will be the fruit of your life. And that fruit, desires answered, desires, dreams fulfilled, will actually give glory to me.
Right.
And whenever we have that relationship with the Lord and we begin seeking the Lord and doing things, the body of Christ, the world, we need to see people that seek the Lord wholeheartedly, and God begins to open doors and use them in their life and advance them. We need to see that.
Yeah.
And so, he says, all we be glorified in this. And so that's one of the I think, main factors or big factors in why do we want to let God reward us? Because when we do that, it actually glorifies him.
Yeah.
So I don't need to go strive and create my own reward. When I allow him to reward me, it actually glorifies him in front of everyone.
Yeah, that's good. So I guess if I'm trying to put myself in that situation, or hearing that for the first time, I think one of the first things you think is, so what if I ask God, I want to be rich? Where does that fall? Is that oh, good, because if that does fall where it falls, and maybe you become rich, that glorifies God.
I think that's that attachment to the vine.
Right.
Because if you're attached to the vine, when you're attached to that vine, it begins to sanctify your desires. There's no way that you're truly connected to the vine and you're going to have a desire that's not from him.
Yeah.
But there's a chance that as being connected to the vine, you might actually have a desire to become wealthy. And that might actually be God's design for your life, because he is going to use you in the kingdom to get money through you and bless people and show people what it's like to run businesses and entrepreneurship. Like, that's not a wrong desire. It's wrong if that desire has been made without going through the vine. And when I'm connected to the vine, it says when you're connected to him, and then it says when you begin to speak what my Father says and ask, so it's alignment. So when we're aligned with him, then the desires are aligned with him, and then the desires are fulfilled.
So what's a good vine check for us? Like, is it writing down all your desires and being like, oh, half of them is about being rich and famous, right? Like, is that like a good way? I don't know, But I think that what you said, talking about John 15, the vine, the branch, the fruit, seeking first the kingdom, right? Like that's Jesus' strategy.
That's his strategy. And going back to what you were just saying, how do you know if you're your desires? You don't have to worry about your desire list. You got to worry about your seeking list.
Right.
And what you will find is the more that you seek the Lord and the more you know him intimately, your desires will change. And they will become even more ridiculous and radical than you could come up with your own. God can do immeasurably more than we can ask or think. He's the God of the impossible. And I might have some desires and dreams that maybe have small impact. But when God begins to put his desires in you, he's a big thinker. He thinks way outside of the box. We're not even understanding what the desires that we might even have buried deep down inside of us. Because we're so in our head, our mind isn't renewed. But when we begin to renew our mind, because we're connected to that vine, you'll see that your desires begin to change. I mean, I have a desire. We have a piece of property, and I want to build a house so bad, and it is on my list. And and I think it's a true desire. I haven't really strayed away from that desire. But I think it used to be much more of it was like all I wanted. If I'm going to pray, okay, that's what I want, Lord. And the more I've spent time with the Lord, all that desire is still there. It's kind of in my back pocket. But my desire now are things like to see the glory of the Lord manifested in the house in such a way that every single person in the room is healed, delivered, and set free. So that is not a desire that I came up with my own. That was a desire that God began to unlock in me as I was connected to him. I don't remember being in my 20s being like, all I can dream about is God's presence manifesting in a room and people are healed. Like, I wouldn't even think that. I'm like thinking my desire is to have a new pair of shoes or all these shallow things. And God said, begin to replace my desires.
I mean, I'm in my 20s.
Upgrade.
I'm in my 20s. I'm offended by that.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I do want new shoes, so my desires aren't right. But I understand.
And you'll see. And the more you spend the Lord, it's like he upgrades your desires. And you go, man, I thought new shoes was impossible. You want me to do what? What are you giving me desire for? And I think that's different for everybody. And I don't think it's always something that's like directly spiritually correlated. It might be desires to see this business thing work, and God's going to be giving you ideas to do that. But we don't even know what those are. And if we keep trying to chase the desire and chase the reward, we miss out on what we're actually called to do, and that's to seek him.
Yeah.
And we treat sometimes seeking him as like the means to an end. Fine. I will seek him so I can get the reward.
Right.
And you'll never find that because
Right.
Jesus isn't the means to the end.
Right.
He's the end.
Right.
And the reward, that's just bonus content.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's because it sounds like what you're saying is that like sometimes we go and we seek the desires, or I'm sorry, we go and desire first. But truthfully, we need to seek first.
Yeah.
Because like you said, not only does seeking get us on the right track, but it purifies our desires too.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about your desires being far off if you're doing the seeking first.
Yeah.
And if the seeking is from the right heart.
Yeah, and I don't even think it's wrong to desire first. I think that's if you don't know the Lord yet, what's all you have? That's the closest thing you got to
Right.
fulfilled life, right? So I think bring your list, and it might have a new shoes, unlimited Big Macs, whatever's on your list.
Yeah.
But you don't go and go, God, I'm seeking you so this list will be made. You go and go, Lord, I'm going to seek you. I'm going to put my list in my back pocket. Lord, you
Right.
know my desires. And then
Right.
you'll be seeking him. All of a sudden you're like, Big Mac, that sounds kind of stupid. Hold on, pull this list up.
Yeah.
I don't want a Big Mac.
Yeah.
Instead,
Right.
I want to share the gospel with people across the globe. Okay,
Right.
then put that back.
Right.
And then you know what?
Yeah.
I want to modify that, and you
Right.
will begin to modify your list because your desires will become so sanctified.
Yeah.
And then you won't feel shallow or guilty for these desires. These desires won't be something that cost you your identity in Christ. These desires won't be something. No, in fact, these desires will catapult you and compel your identity in Christ. It will compel you to seek Him because you'll know He is the author and the finisher of that desire.
Right.
And you're now in it together.
Yeah, so you don't have to. If you're listening and you're thinking, man, I'm worried about my desires being wrong. Don't worry about your desires being wrong. Just seek.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
just
Especially
seek.
for people, I would say, that are coming out of high school, the young adults. It's always like, what's my purpose? What's my plan? I think I'm going to do, here's my dreams, my goals. And it's like, that's not wrong to have. Now that you got it, put that down and go seek Him. And while you're seeking Him, He will begin to give you vision for your life and your desires.
Yeah, watch Him change, but you came up with that 18 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. One of my other questions is kind of a little bit of a pull from what you're talking about earlier and right now. How do we fight the urge to control our timeline and our outcome while we are seeking? How do you hold both?
I don't think we do it very well. I think just awareness, you know? And there's definitely a lot of scriptures in this, and I think it's important that we continue to always self-audit. I think sometimes if we're not actually, if we don't understand what we're doing, we're not even being aware that what we're doing is leading us away from God.
Right.
So just going, okay, hold on, I can do that sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do strive in these areas, and so the Holy Spirit, when I begin to strive, can you show me?
Yeah.
Can you renew my mind? Can you point these things out? And then sometimes you got to put your will out there.
Right.
Sometimes we have this ideology, this theology, I guess is the word, that we go, well, when God's ready for me to do something, He'll give me the grace to do it. He'll give me the grace to not think like that or not do that whenever it's time.
Right.
Sometimes, actually, grace follows your will. And it's more of a going, you know what? I'm striving again. Lord, I don't want to strive anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm going to choose to stop that behavior or stop that mindset.
Yeah.
Now give me the grace to do it.
Yeah.
And then that's how we take responsibility for the part that we play. And that's going, I do want to change my will. Sometimes I do. You know what? You're right. I shouldn't go work 27 jobs so I can make all this money.
Yeah.
If my job's leading me away from the throne, then something's off here.
Right, yeah.
And so I think it's just really kind of choosing to make those adjustments.
Yeah. Like you were saying, seeking, purifies our motives.
Yeah.
Right? And it aligns our perspective and recenters us. And then you talk about taking up your cross. Because my job is the cross. His job is the resurrection. I mean, that's really powerful. Maybe help unpack that idea of how is our job the cross and his is the resurrection?
Well, I think when we go through that seeking process, in that seeking process, the more you seek Him, the more you will find Him. And the more you find Him, the more you will realize the areas in your life that maybe aren't quite in alignment. And it's back to that purifying and that sanctifying process. And through that sanctifying, there's a lot of surrender. So as I seek, sanctify, and surrender, that is the way of the cross. But on the other side of that cross is the resurrection. And that resurrection is the reward. It's the new life. It's the new thing. And sometimes I think we think that that's our job. And our job isn't the resurrection. That's God's job. But our job is picking up that cross.
Yeah.
Every single day.
Yeah. So I guess,
But that doesn't mean you don't keep resurrection in mind.
Right.
In fact, it said that Jesus, because the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. You need to have the desires and dreams and things going on, because without it, you won't be able to endure that cross.
Right.
That's going to give you the joy, but it's not your job to go and make those things happen. It's your job to seek first the kingdom.
Yeah.
And then all these things
Right.
will be added.
You had a good group of lines. My job is the cross, his job is the resurrection. You also said sometimes we mind, instead of our business, we mind God's business. We mind his business.
Yeah, I tried to make a reference there, and you know me, I'm not really great at pop culture, but I can remember from my childhood, and it was the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Okay.
And so a lot of people sent it to me, but he was going, mind your business, just mind your business. And I think that's what our problem is, and sometimes we keep doing his job instead of doing our job. Our job is to seek him. Our job is to surrender. His job is to reward. His job is to multiply.
Right.
His job is to open doors. My job is to walk through them.
Yeah.
But that's part's his job. And so sometimes I'm minding his business instead of minding my business.
Yeah. Mind your business, that's right.
Mind your business.
You said, like we're talking about, the more we seek, the more our prayers, they shift.
kind of shift, yeah.
Right. I guess more personally, have you ever had a season where God, has completely redefined your goals or dreams? I mean,
Yeah.
I know there's a big, giant, obvious one about pastoring,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure.
So what did that look like for somebody that's like, I don't know what that even looks like practically?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of gave the land example, exchanging wanting to have this house built to I just want to see God's glory fall, you know? But yeah, you're right, just the pastor thing. I mean, my dreams 8 years ago was how I was going to leave this place and go make a lot of money.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the first times that I began to go is God calling me? I was actually in my car and I was praying, and I prayed and I said, God, what do you want me to do? At the time, I just got done flipping some houses and making pretty good money doing it. And it was so much fun. So I was flipping houses. James was doing his own private web design and graphic design and stuff. And he was actually making really good money doing it. In fact, more than we were making working at the church. And so, and we were in a season of transition here that we felt like maybe it was a good time to walk away. I was going to art school and getting my degree in interior design. So just cool things were happening, I thought. And so I said God's prayer, and my kids were young at this point, and I was considering moving to Colorado and taking them all with me and maybe homeschooling them all. And James, maybe we could just we could get a trailer and travel across America. I had these great ideas,
Right.
So when I was praying to God, I'm like, okay, God, what should we do? Should I flip houses? Should we move to Colorado? Should James do this business? Should I go help him with his business? And I'm giving God these lists of options for him to pick from. And he very clearly said to me, Stephanie, I want you to change the way a generation views Christianity. And at the time, he was not my priority. My priority was me and my family. And my answer to him when he said that was, well, that wasn't one of the options. I said that. And I said it funny. I wasn't mean when I said it, but I was like, oh, well, that wasn't one of the options. And I was not serving. I mean, I was a Christian, but God was not my utmost priority when this event happened. But now I need to look at that same list and be like, that is hilarious. And of all the options I gave the Lord, man, to be able to impact a generation for Jesus.
Right.
Man, he had it right. He knew the desire.
Right. And
the reward that would come with that desire. And I feel like God's already honored my desire so much. I mean, my kids, they all serve the Lord with their whole heart. And it's amazing to see that. And I kept thinking the best thing for my kids would be for me to take them, expose them to the world and do the thing. God goes, no, I want to change the way a generation views Christianity through you. And let me start first and foremost with your kids.
Yeah.
I don't think as a parent, I think people listening would know this. As a parent, I could list a million dreams, but the number one reward would be that my kids were good and I had a great relationship with them and they loved the Lord and they had integrity and character. And right off the bat, I felt like God began to bless me with that desire. And I didn't even know to ask for it.
Right.
And now I look and I go, man, God, if you never gave me anything else again, what you've already given me just within my home is so much. But even what he gave me within my home is just a piece of the impact that I feel like God's calling us to make from this ministry.
Right.
And so I look at my dreams from 8 years ago. I'm like, that's so stupid.
Well, I think that brings us into another part of the message was like, what happens when God just goes, everyone loves Bruce Almighty, right? Remember, he goes, yes to all, right to all prayers. Like, what happens when, I think there's a lot of funny stories of being like, thank God that he didn't answer my prayers.
Yeah, I think it's a country music song.
Yeah.
Some of God's greatest gifts.
Right, our unanswered prayers, something like that. But I think that's true, because what happens? What do you miss out on, right?
Yeah,
like, what do we
it's so
think?
dumb. I mean, I really wanted to move away from here, and I was going to live who knows where, and now there's times I sit and worship, and the entire room is just worshiping the presence of God. You could just feel God moving. And I sit there and I'm like, God, thank you for not letting me go that way.
Yeah.
Like, man, you just kept, no matter how many times I've tried to leave, you just called me back. And if you hadn't, I wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Yeah.
Listening to this. Like, all of these people, our stories all coming together, because we're all saying, we got all these stories happening. And he's saying yes to everything at the same time, or moving things and saying no to that, yes to that. And he's moving pieces together. And here we are right now in this season and time of just coming together to worship him on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
How many yeses and how many nos did it take to get right here in this moment?
I think you said that too at one point about God's mastermind of multitasking.
Yeah.
He's the greatest multitasker of all time.
He is the greatest multitasker.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing too, just even the idea of him weaving however many people are in a service all together. Like you said, what is their story?
Yeah.
How many unanswered prayers and answered prayers took them there? So I think that's super good. And speaking of getting what you want in that prayer, let's talk about the reward for a second, right? The reward to seek. I think is Matthew 7:7, where it's like seek, knock and the door will be answered. Seek and you will find. Ask and you shall receive. So I think that you said, seeking not only, can lead to a reward, right? But it also prepares us for the reward, right? Because, even if you do have a good and holy, pure desire, right? What happens when, we're not ready for it?
Yeah, and I'm not gonna say this is a definite theology or formula here, but it kind of seems like the higher the reward, the more seeking you need to do to be able to carry that reward. I mean, you go to the Bible, you look at the stories of David and Joseph and Moses and Abraham. I mean, all of these people throughout the Bible, God would give them a desire. He was the one who plants desires. He'd plant this desire, this dream in them, and then he'd make them sit there for 15, 20, 25, 30 years before that desire was fulfilled. I think it was 25 years. Abraham was told by God that he would have inheritance as many as the stars, and God was going to bless him, and through him many nations would be blessed.
Right.
He's 75 at this point.
Yeah.
And he has no children.
Yeah.
25 years go by until he finally has a child, and God actually fulfills the desire.
Right.
Well, what was Abraham supposed to be doing in that 25 years? Seeking him.
Yeah.
David's season on the hill with that harp, that was mission critical to all the abundance that God was going to give him and the authority that he would allow David to have. I mean, not only in the natural, but in the supernatural.
Yeah.
David was breaking so many Old Testament rules that could have gotten people killed. But because he'd sought the Lord, his heart was so pure before the Lord, he was actually being able to host and carry the presence of God into their city.
Yeah.
And so I think that God is, he sees our reward, and now he uses the season of seeking to prepare us. I mean, how many times do we know people that have been praying for something, and as soon as God answers the prayer, or they strive through the door and open it, whatever, then all of a sudden that desire becomes this new idol in their life.
Right.
And now it's no longer about seeking God, it's about seeking that.
Right.
And we begin seeking the reward more than the rewarder.
Yeah. I think that's strong too, because that was my next question was like, I think sometimes would you agree that a problem is that we just keep seeking the reward and not him?
Yeah.
Right.
I would dare to say it's easier to serve God in the valley than the mountaintop.
Yeah.
Valley ain't easy because you've got problems, but at least when you're problems, you're desperate for something.
Right.
But as God begins to bless and reward, I mean, that's kind of what happened with Solomon. David learned how to be a seeker. David met with the Lord, and he sought first, and then he got the reward. Where Solomon was able to get the rewards of his father's seeking.
Right.
And instead of Solomon becoming a David and learning how to seek, Solomon just stayed Solomon and enjoyed the reward. And what happened? Those rewards actually ended up corrupting him and losing the kingdom that his father had sacrificed to really build.
Right.
And I think we can do that. And that's something even in my own life. I go, God, every time I get blessed, like a Solomon, from rewards from even my own family who serve the Lord, Lord, will help me then become a David with my blessings, not become a Solomon. Because Solomon went from getting so blessed all of a sudden, I mean, even he became the wisest man in the world. People would come from all over the world to hear his greatness, his stories, and see what he did, and pride ended up destroying him.
Yeah.
And so God never wants us, our blessings and our rewards, to lead us to that. But at the end of the day, that's still going to be free choice.
Yeah.
And so there is a season of obscurity that we go to, and God's not quite yet putting us out there and showing the world the rewards and things. And that season of obscurity, that down season, that might actually be the most important season that you'll ever go through.
Yeah.
It's not the mountaintop season.
Yeah.
It's that valley season.
Right.
It's the waiting season. That waiting is carving you and grooming you.
Right. I think, those ideas, I think, when you're in the valley, sometimes you can seek, and you're seeking for God to, help you overcome something, right? So when you're putting, like I think you said this in the message, when you're putting your faith in God and you're making it God's, problem, God's going to solve it, right? And the other side of it is then, you've now switched it, however your life went, you've now switched it to being like, now your ambitions and your seeking isn't going no more towards, God. It's going towards, the things of the world. And so now, when it's your problem, now you're the one who carries it, right?
Yeah.
And so that idea of you give it to God, God's going to solve it. You give it to you, you're going to solve it. And you're way worse of a problem solver than God is.
Right, for sure. And I don't want that much responsibility. Any throne I put myself on, I'll have to fight like heck to keep myself there.
Yeah.
Right? And I love that scripture in Philippians, and it says that he'll finish the good work he started. Well, then if he didn't start, if I start it, well, then I have to finish it.
Right.
And I have to take responsibility for it in my life. But if he's the one opening the doors, he's the one making the way, then it's really kind of on him to keep it going.
When God is my provider, it's on him, not me.
Right. When I'm my provider, it's on me. When he's my provider, it's on him.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good deal.
Yes, for sure.
James always says this. He goes like, there's nothing easier than just doing what you're told. And I'm like, that's true, man. I'm sure God's like, if you'll just follow me, I'll take care of everything.
Right.
But I need you to follow.
Well, sometimes we self-made, and we
we gotta do it on our own.
Right. And sometimes you learn the hardest way like that. You gotta touch the stove to realize it's hot.
Yeah.
But if we can get out of that mindset and really trust in Him and not have to learn by experience, it'll be so much easier.
Yep.
I didn't write down the whole quote, but you had a Bill Johnson quote. The more I complicate my life through striving,
the harder it is to discern what is and isn't from God.
Yeah.
And I think we've added so much to the puzzle. And I don't think sometimes we know if the rewards from God are from me, the open doors from God are from me. Who's opening that door? Me, God, or the devil? I don't even know anymore because I got so much going on. When I had the purity of seeking, and that's my number one thing, that's the thing I'm doing. All of these other things do grow kind of strangely dim.
Yeah.
But when we haven't magnified this enough, we've put everything into the same light, there's all of these things that are happening.
Yeah.
My kids are important, my job's important, my future's important, my mental health's important. We get all these things, and they all have equal light shine. But when you begin to elevate the seeking, he gets raised to the light, and all this stuff kind of becomes dim.
Right.
And when that's my number one focus, all of these things are added.
Right.
And when seeking God becomes my focus, it brings clarity into every other area. How should I parent my kids? When I seek the Lord, I will be the best parent I can be.
Yeah.
How should I do my relationship at home with my spouse? When I seek the Lord, I will do the best thing for my husband or my wife, right? Those are the different things in our life when we begin to seek Him. It answers all the questions.
Right.
They're not equal in measure of priority. They're not equal in measure of importance, right? Like there's one thing, this one thing. That's what He told when Mary and Martha was working. Martha was striving in the kitchen, right? And Mary just came and sat at His feet. And He says, but Mary has chosen the best thing, the one thing. It's this one thing that you do. And I think so. I think when striving and measuring all things up. This is the spiritual part of my life. This is the natural part of my life. This is my personal side of my life. And they're all of equal value. I think we get lost in that.
Yeah.
It's heavy. Yeah. And it's a lot to carry.
Yeah, for sure. After you said that quote, you tagged a story about your dad, Pastor Al. Was it on like the beauty of like faithful seeking over strategic striving? I think you said something where it's like, if you knew my dad, like he wouldn't be able to mastermind and come up with all this stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. He was kind of ADD. We used to call him Brittle Man because he'd start a sentence and then not finish it. Yeah. And I guess I can't really judge. Apple doesn't fall.
I'm about to say ADD.
There's a few stories I haven't finished.
Man, maybe he has Riddle Girl.
Riddle Girl in it. But we, because he couldn't do great things for God unless it was really God.
Right.
And that's something that I had the pleasure of getting to watch. I think I shared this. I've never met a man that has sought the Lord more than my dad, or a person, male or female. I can say, growing up behind the scenes, the doors are shut. To see God move, he would, under his breath, he was whispering all the time, like, I'm desperate for you, God, we got to see you move. He would walk this campus night and day, because I bet you, I wasn't with him the moment he passed, but if he was passing, you'd say, what is the one thing you desire? He would say, to see God move and just touch the heart of people. It was just, that was it. He just sought the Lord. Like, I just want to see you. I want to see your presence. And in fact, when he passed away, I felt this moment of like, I really can't even be sad for him, because his dream right now is being met because he's fully found the presence of God. And so that seeking, I feel like, people come to this campus all the time. They're like, whoa, this is so crazy. There's so much here. And to know, like, yeah, it's all here and it's all been paid for. There's no debt going on here. There's no corruption or things that have been happening. This was all just a measure of seeking the Lord for all things. And God began to open doors. And there's so many stories here of God just bringing in a resource or a connection or something happening that God was just providing all along the way. And I got to watch my dad in those seasons of really never striving. My dad used to always say, God's never in a hurry. And he says, if you feel that need, like, we better hurry, we got to make this deal, then you shouldn't make it. Yeah. Until you're in a place of peace, don't move on it. Yeah. Because God never moves in chaos. He never moves in anxiety. He only moves in peace. And he's walking. He's never running. And I watched him do that. I watched seasons when I thought, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. And he would just go, all is well. And he would just trust the Lord. But so in the seeking side, I'm giving a lot of examples of the seeking, but in the reward side, to see what God was able to do through his life on this campus and this ministry, and not that there weren't lots of other people contributing, because there for sure was, but being able to see him as the pastor here, God just began to open up doors. And I've been in this role now for 8 years, which is, I think he ended up being about 42 years in ministry. So I'm about the quarter of the way there, and I'm going like, God, I don't know if I'm accomplishing. I don't know if I have the fruit that this man has, because that was the fruit of this man that just, when he found the Lord, when God saved him, he was actually going to commit suicide. God flipped his life around. Nothing measured up, and because of that became his number one thing, is the seeking. But look at the reward. Now, he came from a very broken home. His testimony is crazy and wild. And so not only in the other buildings here and people and things, this outstretch of this ministry, I think about 50 churches have come out of this church, and missionaries all over the world. I mean, the outstretch of this ministry that's happened because of the seeking, God began to do it. But even on a personal level, I mean, he came from a broken home, and now all of a sudden we're in this generational blessing going on. My sister and I, we both serve the Lord. My kids are serving the Lord. There's just so much reward because of this seeker. And he could not have designed this. My dad could not have created any of this. He didn't have a skill set. So that was God going, I found a man that was consecrated to me. I found a man that can seek me. Yeah. Now I can bring abundance. Yeah. Now I can bring blessing. Now I can bring people and resources, because they will be used for my glory. Right, and like you said, and it blesses God as the rewarder. Yeah, being able to use Him through that as blesses God. You talk about us not rushing the reward, letting God give it. Right. Yeah. And you have a great Christmas analogy for that, the Christmas. No, the kids Christmas sneak in the Christmas presents. Yeah, and they go and unwrap them, and they try to get to it. It's like we said earlier, and God's sitting there saying, like, if you'll just, not rush, like I got it, and I'm working on it. And I guess one of the questions is, why do you think that it's so hard for us to wait when it comes to things that we've prayed for? Yeah. Like if we are supposed to wait and then trust, why is it so hard for us? Yeah, I think we're just like children. I think sometimes we think we're grown up. I don't think we grow up, Yeah. God's got many years on us. And I think we're just like the kids of the tree. We're impatient and we're antsy, and we can't see the benefit of waiting. It feels like right now, there's no time like the present. I think that's a quote.
Right.
And we just run. But it was really a tender moment for me when I was reading that scripture in Hebrews where it says that he's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. And it just started kind of hitting me like, that's who he is. That's his nature.
Right.
He loves to reward.
Right.
He loves to bring good gifts. He loves to bless his children. And every time I go get it on my own, I actually take the benefit of that reward from him. I'm actually stealing his blessing. It blesses him to bless us. And when I go around him and I go bless myself, I actually steal his ability to bless.
Right.
Like one time I remember, actually I bought you a gift one time.
Yeah.
And you kept talking about needing a steamer and you kept coming and using my steamer all the time.
Yeah.
And so I was finally like, that's it. I'm going to surprise him. I'm going to get him this steamer. And I remember that I was going to give it to you the next day. I had it all wrapped up. I was going to surprise you. And I was looking on Instagram and you were posting a story. And you were at Target and you were buying a steamer for yourself. And it crushed me because I was so excited to surprise you.
Right.
And you stole my blessing by buying your own steamer. I think I made you take your other one back.
I did. I did. She did have me return. I mean, your steamer was better.
Because my steamer was better.
That's true.
The same for God.
Right.
He's like, I got something better.
Right.
And
That's
if you'll just let me reward you.
Yes.
But we do. We sometimes rush and we go and we take the blessing. And what we bless ourselves with will never be as good as what he has.
Right.
And that's what Abraham did in that season of 25 years when God goes, I'll place the desire in you. Now seek me until it's time.
Right.
Instead, what did Abraham do? He went and had his wife's servant come and become the mother of his child. And because of that, he has this son, Ishmael. And today, we are still at war because of Ishmael and Isaac. And who was the chosen son of Abraham?
Yeah.
War is breaking out across our world because of that decision for Abraham to go and take matters into his own hands and steal a blessing that God was trying to give him.
Yeah.
And because of that, it caused all of these other things that didn't. It caused pain. It caused suffering. Caused all of these things because Abraham wouldn't just wait.
Yeah.
And that's what we do for God.
Yes.
So we steal it. We mess up the timeline. But more than anything, like, we steal his joy.
Right.
It's his joy to bless us.
Yeah.
And we steal it.
Right. We think about it all the time about, like, what's the best part about, Christmas? Like being able to give somebody a gift, and and it really bless them, and then it blesses you. How good is that feeling when somebody's like, oh my goodness, the gift that you've given me, like, you know me so well,
Yes, and so as I was preparing this, I'm going through all the scenarios. I'm like, well, when you seek the Lord, he's going to develop you. When you seek the Lord, he's going to purify your desires. When you seek the Lord, he's preparing timelines and getting things in order. And those were all very good logical reasons that we should seek him and do the thing. But when I got to this one, and no, we actually steal his blessing by it made me feel sad.
Yeah.
Because it made me feel like, does that hurt your feelings, God?
Yeah.
That you're so excited. Just how I'm with my kids. I plan for months and I have it all wrapped up and I'm so ready. Like when we go around you, God, and just go make it happen on our own, does it hurt your feelings?
Yeah.
And I just thought, like, God, I never want to do that. I never want to be in such a hurry that I take your reward.
Right, yeah, that's what we risk when we try to go grab it for ourselves.
God has access to everything. There's no reward that he can have.
Yeah.
His actual reward is to bless us.
Yeah.
It's kind of like with our parents. Although our parents hopefully they're getting financially secure, and you can't really think of anything to get them because they already have everything.
Right.
But the best thing about Christmas is they get to then give to you.
Right.
And that's how it is for God. He has access to everything.
Yeah.
There's nothing that gives him joy other than blessing his children.
Yeah, I have to throw my dad, Pastor West, under the bus, because every single time Christmas comes around, like, he'll literally in December, if he has something that he wants for Christmas, he'll just go buy it before Christmas, and it's like, we want to be able to bless you. You know what I mean? We want to be able to get you a Christmas present. He's like, I just need it. Like, okay, well that's
frustrating.
Yeah. So I definitely can see God's perspective, because like you said, even like, let's just say what he goes and buys is such a off-brand bad version of what we were going to get him, right? And you're like, oh, you ruined it. You know what I mean? It's the whole steamer story. It's God wants to be able to bless you that way. And speaking of your kids in the story, you also had a Disney story, right? And that's maybe the good side of it. The sad side is someone spoiling presents. But tell your story about preparing for surprising them and things like that.
We were going on a trip to Disney, but the kids didn't know it. I don't remember how long. Tyler was in first grade, so Brooklyn was like in pre-K maybe. Denver was younger. In fact, my in-laws were staying. They lived in Mississippi at the time, and so Denver had gone with Mimi Candy. If you know Mimi Candy, she was staying the week with Mimi Candy. So we told Tyler and Brooklyn this whole story and Kagan that we were going to go to Mimi Candy's and pick up Denver and come back home. So they just whined the whole way. It's such a long trip. You know, we get to Mississippi, and then they're like dreading going back home, and they wanted to even stay a little longer, and we're like, no, we got to go back, we're in a hurry, we have a schedule. And they're just griping, you know, how kids do on road trips. Are we there yet? Are we almost there yet? But what they didn't know is that we were actually, instead of going back west on I-10, we just kept going straight on I-10. We were going east, and they were young. They couldn't tell. They don't know the roads. They don't know the signs. And I think that's what the Lord looks at us.
I'm about to say,
we don't know the roads. We don't know the signs. And it was funny because we kept getting, the closer we got, the more signs, the more obvious it was becoming. You know, you enter Florida and all of a sudden it's the land of Mickey Mouse. And there starts being billboards and oranges everywhere. And I'm like, these kids have got to be catching on.
No idea.
But they were so convinced that we were headed back home.
That you weren't on
that they couldn't even see it.
Yeah.
And so I remember taking Brooklyn, and she was like, if you talk to her about Disney, she's still just a Disney fiend, you know. And I remember taking her into a gas station. She had to go to the bathroom. And I was covering her eyes trying to shield her because it was like Mickey vomit everywhere. And somehow, I mean, I took her in, and Kagan was probably 10 at this time, 11. I mean, he should have been privy to it. No. And so we were moving these kids through all this Disney stuff, Orlando, welcome to Florida, you know, all the things. And they missed every sign along the way. And then that morning, finally, when we just kind of slept through the night, the past few hours, and then the sun begins to shine, we look at the billboards, and it says, Magic Kingdom, next right. And I was like, hey, kids, check that out. They kind of sat for a minute, and they were just like, what? They couldn't even comprehend because it was so unexpected. It was out of nowhere. And finally they realized what was happening, and we went on to have, you know, this amazing, awesome trip. And I feel like it's like for God. It's like if you actually were in tune with Him, there's all these signs that He's moving and working, but we're just not in tune. In fact, who knows what He's planning right now. I heard a story similar to that. It was like a woman who planned this fishing trip for her husband, and she'd gone, like, got the guide, paid for the airfare, talked to the boss at work, and the guy gets to work, and he shows up. The boss is like, what are you doing here? You have a fishing trip planned. He's like, there's no way this trip would take all this money and time. And he's like, no, your wife already planned the whole thing. And I think sometimes we think if these things aren't happening on this timeline, this Disney trip, this takes months to plan, then you gotta have this, and if all of these things, this fishing trip for this guy, if I am not actively making sure everything's getting checked off, then there's just no way it's happening. Little do we know that God's working behind the scenes, and He's doing all of these things that do take time. I don't think we're confused about how long time takes. I think we're confused about how much He's already doing and positioning, and just like that, He can open up a door that might take 10 years to open. He can open it in an instant. You know? And so we get really worried about things not measuring up. Am I married at the right timeline? Or is my career on the right path? Or if I got enough money right now for where I should be right now? And in an instant, God can flip it around. But only if we go to Him and seek Him.
You know, towards the closing, you were like, you know, when you seek Him, you won't always know what, when, or how, but you will know God is working in you. You're learning to trust and obey. You're blessing God by allowing Him to bless you, and it's on the way. You don't have to make it happen. So I guess one of the biggest things, a question at this is, how do you let go without giving up and losing hope?
Well, I think you've got to keep your eyes on Jesus for sure. And I think if you do this without Him, you will give up. It will get frustrating. If you don't have a revelation of who He is daily, and have that communion with Him daily. You know, I could see it in a relationship with your spouse or something. Say you and your spouse had a plan and a dream, and you were working on something, and then you stopped speaking to your spouse for 5 years. You know, I think that would cause a little distance, and all of a sudden you'd be like, I don't even know what he's doing. I'll just figure this out. I don't even speak to him. You know, and I think we do it with the Lord. I think if we don't stay in communion and fellowship with Him, it's easy to think He's not doing anything. It's easy to think that nothing's happening, nothing's moving. But there's something about in that seeking, when we're genuinely seeking, it almost protects us. It protects our peace and it protects our striving and it keeps things in perspective. I think that's why it's so important to have moments of just encountering the presence of God itself, because there's something in that like reestablishes and regrounds you. And the Holy Spirit will give you faith for that season. The Holy Spirit will give you the grace for the waiting season. The Holy Spirit will bring you revelation on what you're even doing in this waiting season. So I would say that if you're gonna try to wait, but you ain't gonna try waiting with God, then you won't be able to. It's too hard. It's too hard. So you're either going to, in the mix, you're either going to become discouraged and quit, or you're going to go off striving and carrying it on your own. And so, it's just in the seeking. And it says, if you seek me with your whole heart, you will find me.
That's good. That's really good. I think that, a couple, questions that if you're listening to this and you're wondering, how to take this and apply it and what to ask yourself, maybe ask yourself, I wrote some down, like what's one desire that you've been holding on to too tightly, right? Where have you been trying to be your own provider in your life? And what does it look like for you to seek the kingdom first this week? Well, what are some good practical ways that we can seek the kingdom first?
I think there's a lot of good practical things that I could say. I try to read my Bible every day. I journal all the time. I try to position myself. In fact, I'm about to go into a prayer meeting right now. I try to position myself, but I really don't think the list matters if your heart's not in it. And I think it starts here, because there's days that my heart's just not in it because I'm caught up in the striving. And I will sit down, I'm like, okay, read my Bible, I got 3 chapters. I read through the Bible in a year. So I can do 3 chapters, check, did my journal, did my 2 Devo boxes. I can do all of the things and get nothing out of it if my heart's not in it. And that's always what the kingdom is about. It's about the heart. So there's definitely practical things that we can do to position ourselves. And I definitely say, if your heart's not in it, it doesn't mean don't do anything. That's literally my testimony is I spent 2 years just reading the Bible because that's what I was supposed to do. And so that rhythm and that discipline led me to him. So I definitely am like, if your heart's not in it, don't just do nothing. Do something. But that's really what it is. It's a surrender of the heart that allows you to begin to seek.
That's good. So I guess where were you pulling from this week? If someone wants to dig deeper into this, where can they look in the Bible?
Where was I? Well, I definitely think you could study some of the characters that we talked about. You could study the timeline of Joseph. I mean, Joseph was one, he gets that dream. And sometimes when God gives us a dream, it's not for everybody. It's for us. But why do we go when we share our dream? Because we think maybe if we share it, it's going to cause it
grow
to happen.
Legs.
And so, you got the story of Joseph. He gets this dream that God gives him in private. Then he immediately goes and tells his brothers, which ends up getting him in trouble. Because he wasn't ready yet. But you can look at those stories, I think, and study any of those guys and look at their lives and go, man, I mean, Jacob was another one. That was Isaac, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. So it was Isaac's son. And he was a striver, man. We talk sometimes about Enneagram numbers. I think he was an Enneagram 3. He has a list. He was an achiever. He was on it. But every time he tried to seek on his own, he just kept getting himself more and more trouble. And what God could have done in 7 minutes, he was doing over 7 years. Well, more than that. It was 7 years plus 7 years plus 7 years, kind of kept adding up. And so I think studying some of the people in the Bible that didn't wait well. And then I think someone who did wait well was David. In fact, he waited so well that, even when I read David's story, there's so many times that God had promised him he would be king. Saul was doing horrible things. Samuel had come and told Saul that God's removed his anointing from you. Like every reason, if I'm David, I'm going like, clearly I'm here to take him out. And David continued to protect Saul. There were multiple times he could have killed Saul and had the throne. And every time he would just wait on the Lord. Other than in his little Bathsheba incident and him having a census later on in his life, every single time that I would have moved, David waited and continued to go wait on God's timing. And God, every single time, there was a time when his son Absalom came and tricked everybody into making him the king. And instead of David fighting and pushing, he was like, well, I'm going to leave. And so he leaves and he goes, man, if it's God's will for me to be here, I'm going to be here. And he just waited on God and ends up, all works out. Absalom ends up getting killed in a war and David ends up back on the throne. He just was so trusting of God. It doesn't mean he was lazy. It doesn't mean he just went and sat on the couch, watched TV and said, I'm just trusting God. No, he was active. He was actively seeking. He was actively obeying. So this isn't a message that says don't be active. It's saying be super active, actively seek, actively obey. But don't actively open doors that God has not opened. Don't actively do that. Don't actively run a race that he hasn't called you to.
That's good. That's so good. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for sitting down with us, and we'll see y'all next week. Thanks for listening. If you want to check out full messages, you can find us at LS Church on all podcast platforms. And you can watch full services with worship at LS Church Alvin on YouTube.